Charlie, who's here today with you?
My dad and my grandpa.
Tell me about your dad and your grandpa.
We're both in the Army.
Awesome. What do you want to say to them today?
Thank you for your service. See you at home, I guess.
Becca, who's here with you today?
My papa,
And tell me about him.
he served in the Army.
Okay. What do you want to say to your grandpa?
Hi, I love you.
Brooke, who's here with you today?
My dad.
Tell me a little bit about your dad.
He is the Deputy Chief of Public Safety Communications in the police force, and he served as a Marine.
Awesome. What do you want to say to your dad today?
Thank you for your service and all you have done for me.
Sophie, you have Arthur with you today, don't you?
Yes.
And what branch of the military did he serve in?
Army.
And what do you want to say to him today?
Thank you for your service. Hi, my dad, Bill, is here. He's a current police officer for almost 35 years now at this point. I just want to thank him for his service and everything that he does for the community and our family. Thank you.
Ellie, who's here today?
My grandpa.
And tell me about your grandpa.
He was in the Army.
Awesome. What do you want to say to your grandpa?
Thank you for your service.
Connor, who's here with you today?
Chris.
Tell me a little bit about Chris.
Chris served in the Marines for 8 years, and he was a sergeant.
Awesome. What do you want to say to Chris today?
Thank you for coming.
Danny, who's here with you today?
Mike Treat.
And tell me a little bit about Mike.
He was served in the Army and he was a police officer.
Awesome. What do you want to say?
Thank you for our support and thank you for taking care of our nation.
Hayden, who's here with you today?
Uncle Mike.
And tell me a little bit about your Uncle Mike.
He was in the Air Force.
What do you want to say to your uncle?
Thank you for coming, and I love you.
Lucas, who's here with you today?
My grandpa.
Tell me a little bit about your grandpa.
He was in the Air Force and served in the Vietnam War.
Anything that you want to say to your grandpa?
I love Grandpa.
Adeline, who's here with you today?
My grandpa.
And your grandpa was a firefighter, wasn't he?
Yes.
What do you want to say to your grandpa?
I love him.
Adrian, who's here with you today?
My dad.
Tell me a little bit about your dad.
He works for the police.
Awesome. What do you want to say to your dad?
Thank you for serving.
Brian, who's here with you today?
My papa.
And what branch of the military did he serve in?
The Army.
What do you want to say to your grandpa?
I love him and I hope he lives as long as he can.
Jake, who's here with you today?
My grandpas.
Both of your grandpas?
Yeah.
And what branches of the military were they in?
They were both in the Army.
What do you want to say to your grandpas today?
Thank you for your service.
Eliza, who's here with you today?
My grandpa.
Grandpa Paul. He was in the Marines, wasn't he? Yeah. What do you want to say to your grandpa?
Thank you.
Gus, who's here for you today?
My grandpa.
And what branch of the military was your grandpa in?
The Air Force.
What do you want to say to your grandpa?
Thank you for your service.
Sam, tell us a little bit about your guest today.
My grandpa served in the Army.
Okay. What do you want to say to your grandpa?
Thank you for all that you did and gave up for fighting.
Lily, who's here for you today?
My dad.
And what branch of the military was your dad in?
The Army.
What do you want to say to your dad?
Thank you.
All right. Genevieve, who's here to see you today?
My grandpa.
Your grandpa. And what do you know about your grandpa?
He was in the Army and thankfully he never had to actually go to war.
Awesome. What do you want to say to your grandpa?
I love you and thank you for your service.
Charlie, who's here today with you?
Riley, Papa, Grandpa, and Jason,
And Ashley?
and Ashley.
Tell me about your family.
Thank you for helping me, and when I'm sad, thank you for helping, and thank you for your service.
Steven, tell me a little bit about your grandpa.
He was in the Army, and he's always been a very nice guy.
Yeah, what do you want to say to your grandpa?
Thank you for serving our country.
Dad and Papa, thanks for your service in the military. It's really special to me because I have something to look up to and to know that the Army isn't that bad.
Isla, who's here with you today?
My stepdad.
And tell us a little bit about your stepdad.
He's a cop.
Current police officer? And what do you want to say to your stepdad today?
Thanks for your service.
Liam, tell us a little bit about your parents.
My dad is a IMPD officer, and my mom works for IFD. She's a captain.
What do you want to say to your parents today?
Thank you for your service and protecting our country.
This is a shout out to the wonderful Deacon Jerry. We appreciate Deacon Jerry so much for everything he does for St. Roch Church, and we really appreciate the fact that he is a firefighter and that he works hard every day to save lives. So we're appreciative to have him here at St. Roch.
Zoe, who's here with you today?
My Uncle Mike.
And tell us a little bit about your Uncle Mike.
He served in the Army, and he's a retired cop.
And what do you want to say to your Uncle Mike today?
Thank you for risking your life for us and going into the war with, and yeah, thank you.
Miles, who's here with you today?
My Uncle John.
Your Uncle John. And what branch of the military was your Uncle John in?
Army.
The Army, yeah, good. Who else is here with you, Zoe?
My dad.
And what does your dad do?
He's a division chief for the fire department of Indianapolis,
Awesome.
or used to be.
What does their service mean to you?
It means a lot to me because it's important.
What does their service mean to you?
Everything.
Gavin?
A lot of things for giving up their time and their life.
All right, Carver, who's here with you today?
My dad.
Your dad, he's a police officer, isn't he?
Yeah.
What do you want to say to your dad?
I love him.
Bailey, who's here with you today?
My dad.
Your dad. Your dad was in the Marines, wasn't he?
Yeah.
What do you want to say to your dad?
I love you.
Good job. Ashton, who's here with you?
My Uncle Chris.
What do you want to say to your Uncle Chris?
Thank you for serving us.
And Macklin, you have somebody here today too, don't you?
Yeah.
He was in the Army. Is it your dad?
Yeah.
What do you want to say to your dad?
I love you.
Oliver, who's here today with you?
My dad, Jay.
Your dad? And what branch of the military was he in?
The Army.
Awesome. What do you want to say to your dad?
Thank you for your service.
Liam, who's here today with you?
My stepdad, Steven.
And he's a current police officer, isn't he?
Yes.
What do you want to say to your stepdad?
Thanks for keeping us safe.
All right, Melanie, who's here for you today?
My dad.
Your dad? What branch of the military was your dad in? Is your dad in the Army? Awesome. What do you want to say to your dad today?
Thank you for serving.
Thank you for serving.
Patrick, who's here today for you?
My grandpa.
Your grandpa, Henry. He was in the Army, wasn't he?
Yes.
What do you want to say to your grandpa?
Thank you for being in the Army.
All right, Alexis, who's here for you today?
My dad.
Your dad, Mike. He was in the Army, wasn't he? And was a police officer. What do you want to say to your dad today?
Thank you for being in the Army and being a police officer.
Harper, who's here to see you today?
My dad, Ray.
Your dad, Jay. And your dad was in the Army, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say to your dad?
Thank you for being in the Army.
Okay, Vivian, who's here for you today? Your grandpa? Your grandpa, Paul, right? And he was a Marine, wasn't he? What do you want to say to your grandpa today?
Thank you for serving.
Colin, you have somebody here today too, don't you?
Yeah.
Who's here today?
Stephen.
Steven, and who's Steven?
My dad.
And is your dad a police officer?
Yeah.
Awesome. What do you want to say to your dad?
Thank you for being a police officer.
Hi, Gus. Do you have somebody here today?
Yes.
Who is it?
Joe.
Your Uncle Joe? Your Uncle Joe was in the Air Force. Do you have anything to say to Uncle Joe?
Thank you.
We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank some of our other guests who are with us today. They do not have students that they are associated with, but we really appreciate their presence. Thank you to Vernon Gerard, who is the head of arson for the Indianapolis Fire Department. Also to Roger Bowser, who is an Army veteran. All members of the Southport Police Department who are joining us today and who have helped us with our arrival, dismissal, and rockathon in the past. We really appreciate you as well. In addition, we would really like to thank John Schneider, who's on staff here at St. Roch. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for your service and for what you do for our city and what you have done for our country. In addition, I would be remiss to not give a shout out to my wonderful husband, Trevor, who also works for the Indianapolis Fire Department as their Division Chief of Planning. Thank you so much for everything that you do for our wonderful city and for our family. We love you.